one reason, and that's to encourage our candidate and again have a chat with him, hear him, and hear what he has to say. He'll bring us up to date with what's been going on in the riding in the last little bit. Hey, Arron.
All right. Who's ready for some common sense change here in Powell River? Who's ready to bring back some safe streets? Who's ready to send a brand new Conservative government to Ottawa, and how about a brand new MP? How does that sound? Thank you guys all for being here, and on a personal note, thank you so much for standing with me through the storm that we've been going through. It has been a crazy campaign here in North Island Powell River, probably one of the ugliest in the country. That's nothing to do with us, but how one of the other political parties decided to play it. And you know, it takes me back to just under 2 years ago, when I first decided to seek the nomination of the Conservative Party in this riding. And a bunch of people close to me, friends, family, former colleagues at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, they all thought, or I shouldn't say all of them, but some of them thought I was crazy. They warned me against it. They said, just wait till you see the misinformation, the slander, the dirty political tricks. And we've had all that and more here over the past few weeks here in the North Island and Powell River. But you know what? There's another side to this story too. And that's the outpouring of support, the record amount of lawn signs that have been requested, and people standing up and having my back, including your great city councillor here in Powell River, Mr. Jim Palm. Where's Jim over there? What an unbelievable representative you have. And the other person I have to be thankful for, who has stood up and had my back as well during all of this nastiness, is the next Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Poilievre. And you know, aside from that, just the outpouring, again, the private email messages, and I read every single one, or messages over Facebook that you guys have sent me, the volunteers who have put hours and hours of their own time into this campaign, because they, as I view this, as the most important election in a generation. And there's so many great volunteers here in Powell River, but I gotta give a big shout out to Robin Murray, who is just an absolute... And the fight is not over yet. So if you've got some time to spare and Robin hasn't roped you in already to scrutineer on election day or help out with Get Out the Vote, he's the guy to talk to. We feel good about this riding, but I tell you got to campaign like you're one vote behind, because you never know here in Powell River or in the North Island what's going to happen. So we're not taking the foot off the gas pedal, that is for sure. I mean, we're going literally flying. I was in Comox already today for a pancake breakfast. And you know what, I warmed up Comox. It kind of surprised me. They sounded a bit louder than you. So I don't know, Powell River, you ready for some common sense? We'll see if Port Hardy can match that. But look, these volunteers stepping up, it means a lot. It means the world to me. There's a lot of you here today. And it reminds me of why I first stepped up to get into this. And that is to do my part to help out and try to move this country in the right direction at a time where I feel like we're at a real crossroads right now. And to help people answer what I think is the central question of this campaign, which is, do you believe Canada is better off now than we were 10 years ago? Or is it time for a change?
Change!
And when I say change, to clarify, I don't mean lipstick on a pig kind of change, or meet the new boss, same as the old boss, or get rid of the carbon tax kind of on some things. I'm talking about real substantive change. What do you guys think?
Yeah!
And I think we have to start looking at the fiscal mismanagement of this country. The Liberals and the NDP have managed to borrow more money over the past 10 years than every other government in the history of this country combined, and we are leaving that bill to future generations to pay for. And now, the leader of the Liberal Party, Mark Carney, his plan isn't to get the situation under control, it's to borrow another $226 billion. This at a time when we're already spending more money paying interest on our debt than we do to our entire military.
Wow.
Are we still sounding good, Paul? And, to me, there's an economic side of this, but there's also an ethical side of it as well when you talk about all of this borrowing. And it brings me back to a metaphor I was thinking of the other day. There used to be this thing, I don't know how much it happens anymore, but sometimes you used to go through the Tim Hortons drive-thru and people used to pay it forward. Does anyone remember this?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Maybe it happens in Powell River more than some other places. But you drive up there with your $5 in hand to pay for your donut and your double, only to find out the person in front of you covered your bill. Well, Mark Carney's fiscal plan for the next generation is the exact opposite of that. It's like driving up with your $5 in hand to pay for your double and your Boston cream, only to find out that the guy in front of you didn't pay for his bill, and now you're on the hook for your order as well as his.
Yeah.
It is ethically irresponsible, and it is economically damaging. And we've seen the economic cost of that, of this huge amount of borrowing, spending, and printing money. That's why we have the highest inflation in 30 years. Gas, groceries, homes. And I think of that list, that has to be the cost of housing that has been the most dramatic. We've doubled the price of housing in this country over the past 10 years. There's a story that I always tell to people that I'm sure if you've heard me speak before, you've heard me talk about my grandfather who left in 1957, fled communism in Eastern Europe to build a new life in Canada. He started out, as most refugees do, at minimum wage jobs working on the railway over on Vancouver Island. And on that minimum wage salary, he was able to afford a home, a nice piece of property, and have it paid off in 10 years. Now, does anyone think here in Powell River, on a minimum wage salary, you could afford a home and a nice piece of property and have it paid off in 10 years?
No way.
We have become poor as a country. There's too much regulation, too much bureaucracy, too many gatekeepers. We need to get them out of the way and start building things again in this country. What do you think?
Yeah.
And just another point on that debt that I have to mention. What do you think of Mark Carney's plan to borrow another $226 billion? Do you think that's a good plan?
No.
How about, or would you prefer the common sense conservative plan where we're going to cut government waste and reduce the deficit by 70%?
Yeah.
And when it comes to the economic mismanagement, I also think we have to look at the damage that's been done to our resource sector right across, especially being felt in Western Canada. I know, speaking for the North Island, forestry is down by more than a third as government uncertainty and high costs have driven away capital, driven away jobs, and as you guys know here in Powell River, driven away mills down to the United States. We literally have billions of dollars taken out of our forests by Canadian companies who no longer want to invest here and have gone to buy mills in South Carolina, in Arkansas, and Georgia. These are our jobs, our workers, who have had their ability to put food on the table, to feed their families, sacrificed by the Liberals and the NDP on the altar of this green ideology. We've had fishermen who have had their access to fisheries and areas that they fished sustainably for 100 years threatened or removed. And we've had miners, even though there's higher demand for Canadian minerals and metals than ever before. The last mine over on Vancouver Island, Myra Falls, also closed. 300 miners put out of work, and it kills me. I don't see it maybe quite as much in Powell River, but in Comox and Kamloops River, even up in Port McNeill, I knock on doors of individuals who are driving down to Comox every other week, flying out to go work in Fort McMurray or Nunavut or the Northwest Territories and mines. And those are good jobs, but they would prefer to work here in their homes, whether in Powell River or anywhere on the North Island, but we have taken those jobs away from them, and it's a shame. We have so much natural resource wealth all around us, and our government is managing to waste it all, and it really is unfortunate. And to me, it just seems that when it comes to these individuals that work hard for the living and follow the law, that the government isn't putting them first anymore. They're sending them to the back of the bus. Does anybody else realize this?
Yes.
And in fact, it seems the only people that are punished anymore under the Liberals and the NDP are those who are working hard, paying their taxes, and following the law. And the biggest example to me are law-abiding firearms. There's no law-abiding firearm owners here in Powell River, right? Nobody's got any firearms here. It's unbelievable. At the same time, the government is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to confiscate firearms from individuals who have never committed a crime in their entire life. They are lowering prison sentences for those convicted of smuggling firearms in illegally from the United States. How does that make any sense? So I've got a radical new idea. How about instead we target the actual criminals and lock them up while leaving law-abiding firearm owners alone? I mentioned our resource workers. There's one other group of resource workers that I have to mention because I think it's maybe been the biggest, and this is a tough title to claim, but maybe the most disastrous public policy decision of the previous government over the past 10 years, and that is to block critical energy infrastructure in this country and leave our oil and gas industry entirely dependent on the United States. They axed Northern Gateway pipeline that was going to take oil from Western Canada to the Pacific Ocean to break the US monopoly on Canadian oil. Then they told our allies in Germany, in Greece, South Korea, and Japan that there was no business case for Canadian LNG. We haven't got one LNG export terminal complete. Meanwhile, the Americans had built more than 12. Then they introduced a piece of legislation called Bill C-69. Has anybody heard of this? Yeah. They call it the No More Pipelines Bill. Took tens of billions of dollars out of our country, blocking energy projects and blocking mines, and sending that wealth and that capital south of the border to the United States. It killed the Energy East pipeline that would have taken oil from Western Canada to Quebec and the Atlantic provinces. Instead, Canada, third largest oil reserves in the world, still importing foreign oil to this day. Wow. But I have a radical new idea, because here's the truth. The truth is Canada has the highest environmental standards in the entire world. So this is what I say. As long as the world needs and demands oil, until that final oil barrel is taken out of the ground, as much of it as possible should be made right here in Canada. What do you guys think? And that means building Northern Gateway, building Energy East, refining Canadian oil right here in Canada, and making ourselves truly energy independent. Yes. And with the recent tariff issue with the United States, to me, this isn't simply an issue of economic prosperity anymore. It's an issue of economic security and an issue of national security, of getting these pipelines built. And on the topic of national security, I also have to talk about the state of Canada's military. And the truth is, I just did a documentary. I don't know if anyone saw the documentary I did on the state of Canada's military. We're at the lowest level of readiness that we have been since before the Second World War. And that's what I heard, not only talking to people in the military today, but the former heads of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. We owe our men and women in uniform better than this. Right now, we've left them flying aircraft, combat aircraft that are more than 40 years old. We can barely put 3 frigates to sea at a time, and I'm not even going to start talking about the submarines. This for a country that at the end of the Second World War had the 3rd biggest Navy in the world, the 4th biggest Air Force, and the 5th biggest Army. And the amazing thing is when you talk to our allies around the world, they're always singing the praises of Canadian troops because they still, despite all this, find a way to get it done, right? Don't they? Yeah. But I'll tell you something. I think we owe it better to them. I don't think Canadian troops should have to become the world's experts in finding a way to use broken, old, crappy equipment. I think they deserve better than that. What do you guys think? Yeah. And I think also, and this is an important point, I don't know if you saw this story that came up again 2 days ago, that when our veterans call and they ask for help, they ask for mental health support, and they ask for guidance to get back on their feet, we give them what they need. We don't offer them government-assisted death.
Yes.
And that's why, and then one other thing on this is, when I was making that documentary, I got to go up to the north, to Iqaluit. And the truth is, our north, especially under the Liberals and the NDP over these past 10 years, is completely undefended and unguarded. Russia right now has about 30,000 troops in their Arctic. The United States has about 33,000 troops in Alaska. Canada, does anyone know how many Canada has? 300. 50% more. 300, and they're all in Yellowknife, and they're almost all sitting at a desk. When it comes to Canada's Arctic, I think we need to use it or we're going to risk losing it. And that's why we're going to increase the size of our great Canadian Rangers. We're going to build more icebreakers, and we're going to return for the first time in decades a full-time military presence in the Arctic and reopen a new base, CFP Iqaluit. What do you guys think of that? And while, after serving in the reserves, there might be no issue closer to my heart than rebuilding the military and giving our veterans the support they need. But if there is another issue, it's dealing with this addictions crisis that has swept this country. And we see what the Liberals and the NDP have done over the past 10 years. First, they decriminalized hard drugs, fentanyl, crystal meth, crack cocaine, and heroin, all to destigmatize it, they said. Then they started handing out a deadly, dangerous, and addictive supply of opioids called hydromorphone, or the brand name was Dilaudid, and marketing them to our young people at colleges and universities and even high schools as safe supply. Did you guys here in Powell River hear about that?
Yes.
Has the problem in Powell River gotten worse over the past 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
100 times.
And we see the results of these policies. Now, these policies kind of, ironically, in a very sad way, are called by the Liberals and the NDP harm reduction. And it would be funny if it wasn't also so sad, because over the past 10 years, 50,000 Canadians have died from drug overdoses. That's more than the number of people who died for Canada in the Second World War, just to put that in perspective. And I shared an image the other day and a video, I don't know if any of you saw it, of this really moving memorial that they have right now in Campbell River of 50,000 flags that one of the city councillors and local artists have set up, representing each one of those lives that have been lost. 36,000 blue flags for men and boys who have lost their lives, and 14,000 purple flags for the women and girls. And what makes it even sadder is just a couple days ago, they had to add another flag when a 15-year-old in Campbell River died from a drug overdose. And does anyone know what drug they overdosed on? Dilaudid hydromorphone, the exact same drug that our government has been using your taxpayer money to hand out for free, flood the streets, and collapse the price. And to me, it's a shameful record, but they say the definition of insanity, right, is to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So I say, instead of using taxpayer money to hand out free drugs, we put that money into treatment, we put that money into recovery, and we return these, our fellow Canadians, into being healthy members of our society once again. And for those trafficking these drugs, who are profiting off the mass murder of Canadians, we are going to bring in mandatory life sentences for those trafficking fentanyl. We are also going to repeal some of the legislation, the soft on crime legislation brought in by the Liberals and the NDP. C-75, which allowed bail for career criminals, and Bill C-5, which reduced prison sentences for serious and violent offenses, including, as I mentioned, smuggling firearms in from the United States. We have to get back to common sense in this country. We have to get back to building things, I think. So these are some of the big issues that I'm fighting for in this election. It's been a long road. It's been a long 15 months. I know many of you, was anyone here the first time when I was in the nomination? We did an event at Town Center Hotel. Is that right, Robin? There's a couple of you have been here since the beginning. It's been a long run. These last 4 weeks have felt especially long for some of the stuff that I've been dealing with it. But I want to let you guys know that we're going to see this out through the end. And if I have the honor of being elected as your next representative, I'm not going to Ottawa to be another voice in the crowd. I'll be going to be your guys' voice. I'll be bringing a big megaphone with me. I'll be going to stir things up and to make sure the people of the North Island and Powell River are properly represented. And I will always, always stand up for what is true and what is right, not what is politically correct. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you very much. And where is Robin? Do we have timers to plane taking on? Thank you very much. We have time, is it? 12:30. Okay. 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 No questions, Robin says. The plane is leaving. By the way, can we give another round of applause to Jean-Marc over there? He's on my pilot for the day. He was one of these individuals. I've been trying to keep this positive, but I have to say the most shameful thing probably through this campaign, did anybody see this list from NDP supporters trying to ban businesses that were supporting us who had signs in their lawn?
Yes.
Well, I just have to tell you the amount of when people go after someone's livelihood, it's in a democracy. It is so against the ethos of what Canada is all about and what our free and fair democratic elections are all about. But I'll tell you something, every single one of those individuals and every single one of those businesses stood by me and still stands by me today, including Jean-Marc. So thank you, Jean-Marc. And thank you everyone here in Powell River.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. John Russell, thank you for allowing us to be on your property and your barn.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Thank you, Aaron. I just have one request. Wilma is standing back by the table there, and